Welcome to the American Lebanese Cultural Center podcast, where we explore the rich history and culture of Lebanon. We'll talk to experts, artists, and everyday people about everything from food to music to business. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome, Major Katrib.
Thank you.
This is Major Ben Katrib. Major Ben Katrib is he leads the Criminal Investigations Bureau, overseeing investigations into violent crimes, special victims, and general investigations divisions.
Yes.
And that's for the sheriff's office for Harris County.
Yes.
Right?
That is correct.
Okay, great. Well, Major Katrib, please tell us a little bit more about your story and how did you end up here?
Thanks. First off, thank y'all for having me. It means a lot. It's an honor to be here with y'all. So my journey started in Lebanon. I was born in Lebanon, in North Lebanon. And this is where I grew up during the Civil War. And I left in 1996 when I was 17 years old, fresh out of high school. And came to the United States to pursue, to further my education. I attended the University of Houston, main campus, graduated with a bachelor's in civil and environmental engineering. But since I was a child, I've always had a passion for serving and for law enforcement. So initially, when I was in Lebanon, my plan was for me to get a degree and then possibly join the Army there as an enlisted officer. But as you grow up, your plans change. So I came to Houston and pursued the civil engineering degree. And I was working as a full-time engineer, structural engineer, and reserve deputy with Harris County. And the reserve is basically a volunteer where you do it on the weekends or whenever you're able to. You're only mandated to do anywhere between 16, 24 hours a month. And it's just, you're serving the community and you're doing something that you're passionate about. And after, it really was the turning moment in my career was after the events of September 11th. I felt like I needed to do more. So that's when I joined as full-time and started with the sheriff's office. The journey started you work in detentions, then I did a couple months there, then went out to patrol, and I was on night shift patrolling in Northwest Harris County, the Cypress, Tomball, Fairbanks 290 area. After that, I became an investigator and went and worked in undercover narcotics, and I was there for approximately 5 years, and then became the training coordinator for undercover operations. And while there, we introduced the first basic and advanced undercover training here locally in Harris County. And the whole concept for me was we're the third largest sheriff's office in the nation. So instead of going out of town and having to pay expenses and whatnot to attend training, I figured we're big and advanced enough and we have so much talent here locally that we can bring others to us. So that was the concept behind it. So afterwards, I worked in violent crimes, and there I basically I was focused on violent criminal gangs that were terrorizing business owners and so forth. Done a lot of good work there. Of course, it was teamwork with everyone involved. And was awarded 100 Club Officer of the Year for work done in dismantling criminal organizations and their leaders. And in narcotics, I received a public service award from the U.S. Attorney's Office for work that was done here. So at a point in time, after being a deputy for approximately 12 years, I took the first step into promoting, and I challenged the test and the assessment, and I'm promoted to the rank of sergeant. And I worked briefly in child abuse, and then I transferred to the courts division. a law had passed that requires every agency to form their own threats investigation unit for anyone targeting judges or anyone who comes to the courthouse, prosecutors, defense attorneys, defendants, so forth. So I was tasked with that and implemented the first in Texas judicial threats unit. Wrote the policies, procedures for it, and that, of course, takes time. So it consumed the majority of my time as a sergeant, which was approximately 4 years. From there, I took the next step, challenged the test again, and promoted to the rank of lieutenant. And I was assigned to detentions for 6 months. Then I transferred, and I was the crime scene investigations commander and the crime lab director. I spent a few years there. Then I was transferred as the homicide unit commander as a lieutenant. And while in crime scene, we implemented a lot of good programs. We interacted with the community and the schools. So if a school has a forensic type program, we would come out and take our equipment and interact with the students. They'll ask us questions. We do presentations, and that went really well. We did it with several schools, especially KDISD. That was like a 2 or 3 day event for them. It's a
KDI?
KDISD.
KDISD.
Yes.
Okay, I understand.
So, and transferred to homicide and oversaw the murder investigations and the cold case. And at the same time, another state law, there's always, as you know, so often you have, laws that pass, and there was one that was focused on DNA and CODIS, which is the national database where all DNA is stored. And it required us to come up with a way to track the offenders whose DNAs are, we're getting what we call a hit on their DNA. So
all over the country, or just in Harris County?
In Harris County.
Okay.
So,
but that CODIS system, was that
the CODIS is nationwide.
Nationwide.
Yes.
Okay,
So,
I understand.
So with that,
And did you help set up this system?
so CODIS has always been in place, and it's maintained by the FBI.
Okay.
But the new requirement mandated us to keep track of those, basically just keep a solid track of the offender hits that are coming in, a duty to notify the victim, a duty to obtain the offender's DNA, and so forth. So with that, I was tasked with the Harris County Institute of Forensic Science, and designed a website where they would log the information, and then we would receive those email notifications automatically that we have a DNA profile hit, and then it tracks also victim notification, acknowledgement, and so forth. So I built all that in a SharePoint-based site, and it's received a lot of positive feedback from the Harris County Institute of Forensic Science and District Attorney's Office. And now we're in talks considering expanding it to every agency in Harris County, not just the Harris County Sheriff's Office and the constable offices. And afterwards, I had promoted to captain, challenged the test again, promoted to captain, and I went back as the courts division commander. And afterwards, so the way the rank structure works, once you get you can challenge the test as a deputy to become a sergeant. And now we implemented detective rank, so you can also challenge the test to become a detective. Then there's the lieutenant.
And when you say challenge the test, what exactly do you mean?
So there's study material that's put out. It's usually books and policy. You have to take a written test, and anyone who scores 70% or above will be afforded a chance to go to the assessment, which is scenarios, interviews, and so forth. And there's a scoring mechanism. And depending on how high you score and the need for the rank that you're applied for, that's how you get promoted.
Oh, okay.
So you're able to take those steps on your own up to the captain level. After the captain level, any position higher than that is appointed. So I'm extremely grateful to Sheriff Ed Gonzalez for seeing something in me that prompted him to have a meeting, and he called me in under the disguise of wanting to discuss some court matters. So I showed up with my notepad, and I was ready to take notes. And when I sat down, he said, "You can put that away." And I really wasn't understanding what was happening. So I put it away. I said, "I thought you were going to talk about court matters." He goes, "Yeah, that's just to get you here. I didn't want you to start overthinking stuff because I know you're always thinking." I said, "Okay, so what are we going to talk about?" And that's when he told me, he said, I'm going to promote you to a major. And that was really awesome.
Wow. And you were the first Lebanese American major in Harris County?
Yes.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
How long ago was that?
So the talk we had, I still have it because I wrote the memo in my notepad, was on November 27th, because I always start my meetings by scribing the date and what the meeting is about. So I have that paper. I told him I'm never going to lose that one. And but it took effect on the first of the year.
Okay.
And the official ceremony was on January 9th. So.
Well, that's great. I think that's really great for the whole Lebanese community. And it's really very inspiring to see someone like you come to this country and you really start at the bottom of a hierarchy. Like you were a reserve officer, right. And then you listen to your heart and continue to head in that direction. And now, what, 20 years later, 30 years later?
22.
Yeah, 22 years later, you've made major. So, I mean, I think that's an incredibly inspiring story. And, it's almost hard to imagine because there's so many steps along the way where, I think someone listening to this may not even know how to take the first step. And so, did you guide yourself through this whole process or how did you know to keep it going in this direction? How did you know, all the different moves you made in your career? Is there sort of a common thread that goes through all of them as far as understanding yourself and how to head in these different directions? Because it sounds like you've worked in almost every single, or a lot of areas of the sheriff's office.
Yes.
I mean, I was trying to keep track of all the different areas you were talking about. I mean, it really sounds like you've seen it all. So if you were talking to someone who's young, who's thinking about getting involved with the police, with the sheriff's office, how would you advise them to take that first step? So
the first thing I would say to them is to join the Harris County Sheriff's Office and no other agency. Just kidding.
Which in the Sheriff's County's the Sheriff County Sheriff's Office for Harris County is the third largest in the country, right?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
But on a serious note, it is. My experience has been, everyone was very welcoming. Everyone took me in. So my advice is pursue your passion, right? So one thing, like you would know, as we all know, the Lebanese culture, the Middle Eastern culture, parents are always persuading their children to be engineers, doctors, or lawyers. Like those are the big three, right? And as you can tell from my background, I was also talked to about this. So my sister is a dentist. I'm an engineer. That's the degree that I obtained. So don't be afraid to have those tough conversations, but make sure they're respectful conversations with your parents about what you really want to pursue. And if that's your dream, pursue it. And it starts with the police academy. You apply, we put you through an academy, and then you become a deputy, and you will work in patrol, which is the backbone and foundation to everything. That's where you're going to learn so much, because you're going to be subjected to all calls, accidents, murders, shootings, and also it could be just a normal call. The one thing that I would tell anyone thinking to join this line of work is just be humble and have humility, because you're contacting people sometimes at the lowest point in their lives. So it depends. Your interaction with them is going to leave a very lasting impression. So the best motto is to treat people the way you want to be treated, or your family to be treated if they encounter law enforcement. So pursue those. If you do, don't settle. Don't take the easy way and get comfortable in an assignment if it has day shift or weekends off. Challenge the test, rise through the rank, and be a voice that can be heard at a command level. Because we have good leaders in place, like Sheriff Gonzalez, who will not only he would not stand in anybody's way. To the contrary, he'll see the talent and he recognize it and rise them to the level that he put the confidence in me to lead. So I urge them to have those tough conversations, be respectful, and just pursue your dreams.
And you talked about following your passion, and you talked about our culture and how it can be sort of there can be some blinders on like all the opportunities that are available here. And I think what was very interesting is that you also talked to, I think your career specifically as one of service. And so to me, it seems like it would be a good career for someone who has a heart for service. And it sounds like you had that from a very early age.
Yes. So, and to answer you on the part, like how did I become involved in all this? So I remember I lived in an apartment complex on the east side of town, and there was a deputy, Harris County Sheriff deputy. We're best friends. We have been and we remain. So I used to see him walking around because that was part of what he did as living there as a courtesy officer. He would walk around, check on cars and so forth, and I would interact with him. Next thing you know, I start walking with him. Then, I would ask him, hey, when are you walking again? So we became friends. Then he took me on some ride-alongs with him in the car. And that's something people can do. We do have ride-alongs if they want to see what this work is about. And the more I interacted, the more ride-alongs, the more I was absolutely certain this is what I wanted to do.
And how does someone go on a ride? Is there a number we can call, or?
So it's on our website. And,
okay.
If there's a number, I'll look it up and give you that. But there's a waiver
just Google
that has
ride
to be
along.
signed. Yes, liability waiver and so forth. And we do also do a criminal background, just criminal history check, and then that's how it can be done.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think that's really interesting. I kind of want to sign up for a ride along.
Please. And next time we have a big event, maybe we'll consider having a recruiting booth for the sheriff's office in our event. So
let's talk about a little bit more about your Lebanese heritage and how it kind of has played into your career. Do you find that the values you came up with and your Lebanese background helps you with your work?
Yes, it does. It helped me. I worked on cases that I won't be able to get into too much details with, but we work closely with federal partners, and there were cases that had a terrorism nexus to it. It didn't just require someone to know how to speak the language. You had to know the culture so you can understand if someone is telling you the truth or lying about something, if they're cooperating. So being born there, having spent my first 17 years of life there, it teaches you the things that can't be taught unless you're there, right?
Yeah.
So that definitely came in handy. And so from that perspective, that definitely was very helpful. And also, as Lebanese people, we're resilient. The country has been through civil wars and constant turmoil in the region and so forth. And in one of the books that I was studying to become a captain, I couldn't help but notice the one sentence that says, people who overcome adversities and how you overcome those challenges shapes who you are and makes excellent problem solvers. So I feel like that aspect helped me out tremendously.
I also imagine that, you talked about being humble when dealing with people, especially when they're at the lowest point of their lives, and having a passion for service. And to me, what seems to be clear is that also maybe having that sort of broad perspective for people from different places, overcoming things that are incredibly challenging, coming from places of disadvantage, or being in a new environment. I imagine that would give you a lot of perspective, especially when dealing with people who are going through a lot.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one thing to keep in mind is, there's always two sides to every story, and then what really happened. And, you always want to give the benefit of the doubt. I can't stress that enough, because, our job is to seek the truth. It's not to seek, we're not on the prosecutor side or the defense side. We're just impartial. We should just seek the truth, gather the facts, and then, you know, uh, discuss those facts in testimony if it gets to that in a courtroom.
Something that I also have been thinking about while listening to you is that, I noticed that as you moved on through your career, it sounds like you got involved with some legislation, and then you were working with tech and SharePoint, and you were interacting with the court system and members of the judiciary if you were protecting them. And so it sounds like your career has been extremely multifaceted, in that it hasn't just been hands-on work, but also very, very academic at sometimes, and
Yes.
very intellectual.
Yes.
Were you expecting that when you first got involved?
I was not. I was not. I expected the work that I did in patrol and then in investigations. But one thing to the credit of our agency, and again, Sheriff Gonzalez, is that his motto is never stop learning. And so AI is the biggest thing. So now he's implementing an AI committee for law enforcement, and I'll be involved with that. I did not know that I did have that side, but I'm proud of it. It's good. It feels good that you're able to be part of something big, something new, and at the same time, as part of being humble, always make time for those who ask you and want to learn, want to become successful. Always set aside some time during your day for them, because I feel like time is the most undervalued resource, right?
Yeah.
Taking time out of your day to dedicate to helping someone is definitely something that people should be doing more.
And that's good to hear. And it sounds like you've come across many people in the sheriff's office who share your values and see things the way you do. I'm sure that's refreshing. I mean, there's a lot of different kinds of people out there, but it sounds like you've been supported by a lot of these fellow
Yes.
members of the sheriff's department, and they share your values in a lot of ways on a lot of different topics, right?
Yes. It's been a tremendous support, and I feel like I contribute back to it, and now I'm in a position that I can do what others have done for me when I was joining the agency at an early age. So
Okay. All right. Well, Major Katrib, the first major in the Harris County system, Harris County Sheriff's Office. I think now we can kind of zero in a little bit more and talk about, your history, a little bit more about your story, coming here from Lebanon, where in Lebanon you were born.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people listening would love to hear about that, because, it's always extremely inspiring to hear about how someone came from such familiar origins, and then came here and made their way. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure. So I was born in a small town, Batromin El Kura in
Oh, yeah.
Bishmel.
I'm originally from Cordoba.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
So, growing up, I attended Balaman Secondary School in El Hat, Bilkura. And my mom's brother, my uncle, he lived in Virginia at the time. So he had started the process of residency for my mother. And naturally, since I was under 18, I would automatically I would get my residency status. However, by the time I graduated high school, the paperwork hasn't came in. So I applied for a student visa, and I was granted a visa. And as you know, at the time, Lebanon did not have an embassy that was operational. So I had to fly to Ubros, to Cyprus, to get the visa. Came back, and the plan was to apply for college, and was accepted at the University of Houston. So that's how I ended up here.
Yeah.
And then after getting here, I got here in August of 1996. And of course, it's Murphy's Law. In December, the residency paperwork came in. So I had to fly back to Lebanon, which was good because I was homesick. It was very difficult at first, big culture shock. Because my idea of Houston, Texas was what I saw in the Western movies that I loved watching. So I was expecting horses, stables, desert, all that. So I was blown away when I landed in Houston. But anyway, so went back, and we had to go to Syria at the time, to the embassy there, to be able to get the initial paperwork done. And then I was extremely happy because 2 weeks later, I flew back here with my parents. So it was great.
Well, did they let you ride any horses on patrol?
No, I kind of gave up on that after joining.
Because I see them sometimes downtown, and
it
I'm
takes
like,
a lot of training that I do not have. Yes,
yeah, that's pretty cool. But they do have a horse stable, police stable
yes,
for the
absolutely,
horses, right?
yes. We have an entire mounted division. So.
Okay, well, just real quick, my parents are from Tehran.
Oh, okay, yes, we're neighbors.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of time in El Had.
Yep,
and
that's where my mother is from, El Had.
Okay.
So, yes.
Yeah, like that. There's like that little suit right there where there's like a square kind of, and
yes, in
maybe
the middle of the town.
Yeah. But
there's a road that's between, like, the houses are right there, and it's so tight, you wind. Yeah.
Has it been a while since you've been back?
I go back. I try to go back at least once a year. So last year I went back in April, and then I went back in July, of course, because who would want to miss out on the beach down there? So, and I love to bird hunt. So I went back in April, did some quail hunting, and then in July, and I'll be going back this April as well, and I look forward to it.
I've shot one bird ever, and it was in a hot.
Okay. Okay.
and I know it's close to the beach there. So
it is.
You can't beat that beach. What's that? The Enfe?
Yes, Enfe. I grew up. We always went to Las Salinas in the summer. That's where I spent all my summers, and loved it. Yes.
Las Salinas is nice.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's talk also about maybe your training and what the process looks like. If you were to, at every step of the way, I'm sure you have to, it sounds like you had to do some self-studying when you challenge the test.
Yes.
You review legislative materials, new codes, etc.
And books.
Lots of
We're
books.
provided a book that we have to read, and a lot of question comes from within.
And that's not simple stuff. I'm a lawyer, and I have to read a little bit of legislation, not a little bit, a lot of legislation, a lot of code, and I know that it can be it can require a lot of focus. But
It does.
But do you receive any training on that, or is it all just the hands-on stuff?
So the preparation for the test, there are certain companies that offer the training, but to me, my mom was a physics teacher, so I grew up and she was mentoring me throughout. Study this, do that. So I had a pretty good foundation on how to study because it wasn't a choice. She left me no choice, and my dad was in full support, of course. So that helped me out a lot. So I would read the book, outline it, come up with my own questions, and then challenge them to test. And as far as the assessment, that's where your day-to-day job and experience, what you've done in your career, that's where it's gonna all pay off, because you'll be sitting with a committee, and you don't know who they are, they don't know who you are, because we hire an outside company that comes in to administer the testing. And they'll give you scenarios, and what would you do? And then as the scenario goes, they'll ask you, now this person, closed the door, started shooting outside the window, now what do you do? And you have to be constantly on your feet, constantly thinking. So the more you have done as a deputy and in your career, the more it's going to help you when it comes time to prepare for those, and because that's your moment, and you have to own it. So it comes in handy in that perspective. As far as other training, I've received a lot of training. By far, I think the most challenging one was the basic SWAT school. And although I didn't serve on a SWAT team, but in narcotics, we did a lot of tactical entries. So I went through the basic and advanced SWAT school, and the basic SWAT school was based on a Navy SEAL mentality. The first 2 or 3 days were just the hardest thing you can put your body through. And they wanted people to quit, and there were a lot of them who quit, and that was the whole purpose. They wanted to see who doesn't quit. So that by far was the most challenging training.
Well, clearly, discipline is a definitely a requirement to do well in this and in your profession. And I think it's really interesting that there's a lot of knowledge that needs to be acquired, but then there's also this huge constant application component. And there's a big difference, I would imagine, between reading about something, learning about something, and then applying it in the real world. And so during those assessments, it sounds like they're kind of asking you about both, right?
Yes.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the different departments in the sheriff's office. You know, it sounds like you've seen a lot of different divisions. And before we get into your day-to-day, which we'll talk about in just a moment, just what's a high-level sort of 10,000-foot view of the sheriff's office and the different departments within it?
Sure. So as you know, like on the hierarchy, the top of the organization, the sheriff is our boss. He's an elected official, elected by Harris County residents. And
that's Mr. Gonzalez.
That's Sheriff Ed Gonzalez. That is correct. And there's one chief deputy. Our chief deputy is Thomas Diaz, and his is also a remarkable story because him and I work patrol together, and he also has risen through the rank coming from being a deputy, which is remarkable. He's very intelligent. And there are 3 assistant chiefs. So we have the Field Operations Command. That's the one I belong to, and the assistant chief is John Nanny. And under that, there is the Criminal Investigations Bureau, which is led by a major, which is me. And he also has the Special Investigations Bureau that's led by Major McConnell, and 2 patrol bureaus, East and West. Patrol bureaus are led by Major Blinderman and Major Earl Dean. So this is one shape of it. The 2 other assistant chief, we have Assistant Chief Saul Suarez, who also, same thing, he came through the ranks as a deputy, and he oversees internal affairs, Office of Inspector General, training, SWAT, Homeland, and so forth. We call it now Special Enforcement Bureau. And then the last bureau is Assistant Chief Philip Vasquez, and that's the Detention Command. Because as you know, by law, the sheriff's duty is to maintain the jail, and we have several detention facilities. The Joint Processing Center, that's where when someone is arrested, that's where they come in to be processed, and then they're housed at one of 2 different facilities that we have, 1200 Baker or 701 jail. So that's sort of a quick overview of the sheriff's office.
And when you were at U of H, was that the main campus or the downtown one?
Main campus.
Oh, okay. So you weren't right next to one of those detention facilities?
No, but I had my fair share of visits there, either for work or investigative purposes.
Well, at one point, were you involved with that area of the sheriff's department, or
the detention side?
Yeah.
Yes, as a sergeant, I was assigned there for about 6 months. Then as a lieutenant for 6 months. As a captain, I went to courts, but courts fall under the Detention Operations Command. And so, yes, and there are a lot of good people that work there. A lot of them are eager to learn, and you get a chance to help them, show them the way. It was very, I feel like it's a necessity. It's done for a reason when you promote for you to spend some time in that command, because it teaches you a lot. So.
Yeah. Well, I also think that's a great reflection of your attitude and that you were able to see that. And I'm sure that those who receive training with you or under you benefit from that perspective that you can give them also.
Yeah.
Now let's zoom in a little bit about your day-to-day. I mean, clearly you sound like a very disciplined man, a man who's very driven by service, and discipline is probably or routine is probably a good component of achieving your goals in that way. So can you talk to us a little bit about your day-to-day?
Sure. So I'll start with the weekend going into the week. So one thing that I also emphasize is people need to stay healthy, because no one knows what it's like to be in a few seconds of fighting for your life, and if you don't have the endurance and the strength to overcome that, it could be extremely dangerous, if not fatal. So my weekend start by, I love to cook, by the way, so I meal prep for the entire week. Usually that's on a Saturday or Sunday. And then leading into the week, I start my either a morning workout, or if not, I'll get the workout in the evening. But pretty much in the Criminal Investigations Bureau, I come here to this office, and there are so many divisions. So we briefly talked about them, but to give you more of an insight. So I check in with all of them. So I have homicide, robbery and assaults, violent offender, criminal warrants, fugitive, Gulf Coast, violent offender task force, burglary and theft, financial crimes, and on and on. There's just so much more. So I check in with all of them. I have an open door policy, and I love seeking people's feedback. So I'm always checking in. What are we doing that's going good? What can we improve on? And with emphasis on maintaining a positive attitude, because we can take any situation and make either the best or worst of it. So I'm always looking to make the best out of it and staying positive. So then there are reports to look at, making sure that we're making progress. There are projects that are important items for the sheriff. I'll make sure that I'm staying on top of those. And before you know it, your 8 hours had gone by, just like that. And often the day consists more than 8 hours, but it's all for good work that's being put in. Now, in every once in a while, there will be some major scenes, and if depending on, each one is on case-by-case basis, but I'd love to go out in the field with my investigators, because I was there. I was that person who took care of those investigations. So I love going out there. I love interacting with them, and making sure if media is present, we'll give a soundbite. And just the mere fact that you're out there, your troops appreciate it. They know that you could be in the office, but you're choosing to be in the field with them. And it also, you start bouncing ideas off of each other. Like, okay, so I'm looking at this crime scene and I'm seeing this. What about you? And then it gets the wheel turning with feedback. And before you know it, everybody have a different investigative background, so they contribute something different. And believe it or not, that's how crimes are solved. So.
Wow. So when you're trying to solve a crime, what do you think is, thinking back to your investigation days, now when you go out there as a major, are you contributing to the investigation, or are you sort of supervising the investigation?
So there are several other supervisors, that are there, and they do a tremendous job. So I don't, they take care of supervising. And detectives also are. By the time you're here in this bureau, you've established yourself and you've received good, great training and so forth. So I don't so much supervise them. I just check in with them. And also, if there's a conversation, I'll just sit there and listen. And if there's something for me to provide a feedback on, I will. But for the most part, just making sure they don't need anything. If there is media, we can address that so they're not having to deal with it, so they can stay focused on it. And as far as solving the crime, the best way I can put it, it's like a puzzle. So you have to find the piece first, and then you have to see where does this piece fit in the bigger picture. And that's how you piece it together. But it also takes a lot of interpersonal skills. Communication is big. Again, it's all about how you talk to people, and that's people tend to talk and get more comfortable with people that people tend to provide good information and be engaged more if they're comfortable with the person they're talking to. If they're not, they're more likely to, not give any information or so forth. So it's a lot of technology that goes into it, a lot of investigative tools, and also a lot of investigative efforts on the detective side.
And it sounds like, there's no shortcut, right? It's time is a huge thing. It sounds like this job is really, to do it well, it just requires a lot of time.
Yes, it does.
And, I guess you are clearly very motivated to invest that time in this job, and clearly you do find it rewarding, or you wouldn't keep investing to reach this point where, you're a major. I wonder what drives you. I know you said you have a passion for service, but I understand that maybe was the gut instinct that drove you into this profession initially. But the day-to-day, the year after year, decade after decade, what makes you really want to keep pushing, keep spending all that time and effort into being the best version of yourself in this job that you can be?
Our reflection on the community, because like I said, there's nothing more rewarding than meeting with a family and letting them know, you found out who murdered their loved one or who shot their loved one, and you were able to, hold that person accountable by filing charges. And then after that, as you know, as an attorney, it goes through the criminal justice system. So there are factors that at that point are beyond our control. But what drives you is that lasting impression that you're leaving with the community. You want it to be as positive as possible. So to me, that's what drives me.
Got it. Well, Major, I really appreciate you talking to us today, and
thank you.
I personally am very humbled to meet you.
Thank you. Same here.
And it was very
thank you.
Very nice to meet you.